Common assessment number 6. On the tomato trail. My obituary's headline would have read, Food Writer Killed by Flying Tomato. On a visit to my parents' condominium in Naples, Florida, I was mindlessly driving along the flat, straight pavement of I-75 when I came up behind one of those gravel trucks that seem to be everywhere in southwest Florida's rush to convert pine woods and cypress stands into gated communities and shopping malls. But as I drew closer, I saw that the tractor trailer was top-heavy with what seemed to be Granny Smith apples. When I pulled out to pass, 3 of them sailed off the truck, narrowly missing my windshield. Chastened, I eased back into my lane and let the truck get several car lengths ahead. Every time it hit the slightest bump, more of those orbs would tumble off. At the first stoplight, I got a closer look. The shoulder of the road was littered with green tomatoes so plastic and so identical they could have been stamped out by a machine. Most looked smooth and unblemished. A few had cracks in their skin. Not one was smashed. A 10-foot drop followed by a 60-mile-per-hour impact with the pavement is no big deal to a modern agribusiness tomato. If you have ever eaten a fresh tomato from a grocery store or restaurant, chances are good that you have eaten a tomato much like the ones aboard that truck. Although tomatoes are farmed commercially in about 20 states, Florida alone accounts for 1/3 of the fresh tomatoes raised in the United States, and from October to June, virtually all the fresh market, field-grown tomatoes in the country come from the Sunshine State, which ships more than 1 billion pounds to the United States, Canada, and other countries every year. It takes a tough tomato to stand up to the indignity of such industrial-scale farming, so most Florida tomatoes are bred for hardness. Picked when they still firm and green, the merest trace of pink is taboo, and artificially gassed with ethylene in warehouses until they acquire the rosy red skin tones of a ripe tomato. Beauty, in this case, is only skin deep. According to figures compiled by the U.S. Department of Agriculture, Americans bought $5 billion worth of perfectly round, perfectly red, and in the opinion of many consumers, perfectly tasteless, commercially grown fresh tomatoes in 2009. Our second most popular vegetable behind lettuce. We buy winter tomatoes, but that doesn't mean we like them. In survey after survey, fresh tomatoes fall at or near the bottom in rankings of consumer satisfaction. No one will ever be able to duplicate the flavor of garden-grown fruits and vegetables at the supermarket or even the farmer's market. But there's a reason you don't hear consumers bemoaning the taste of supermarket cabbages, onions, or potatoes. Of all the fruits and vegetables we eat, none suffers at the hands of factory farming more than a tomato grown in the wintertime fields of Florida. Perhaps our taste buds are trying to send us a message. Today's industrial tomatoes are as bereft as nutrition as they are of flavor. According to analysis conducted by the U.S. Department of Agriculture, 100 grams of fresh tomato today has 30% less vitamin C, 30% less thiamine, and 19% less niacin, and 62% less calcium than it did in the 1960s. But the modern tomato does shame its 1960s counterpart in the area. It contains 14 times as much sodium. A couple of winters ago, I bought an assortment of supermarket tomatoes and brought them home for a tasting. I put 4 on the counter and reached for a cutting board, accidentally nudging one. I was too slow to stop it and watched as it rolled off the counter and fell on our newly refinished pine floor. It hit and traveled for a few feet, but incurred no damage. As I retrieved it, my partner came into the kitchen, and I tossed the tomato at her playfully. She shrieked and dodged, and my hearty store-bought tomato struck the floor with a solid thud of a baking potato. I bowled the fruit through the kitchen door, across the dining room, over a wooden threshold, onto the tile floor of the sunroom, where the tomato that would not die crashed against the door. No damage done. The best way to experience true tomato taste is to grow your own. Little wonder that tomatoes are by far the most popular vegetable for home gardeners, found in nearly 9 out of 10 backyard plots. Both the tomato that would not die and the heirloom Brandywines in my Vermont garden are of the species Solomon lycopersicum, and both are red, but similarly ends there. My Brandywines are downright homely, lumpy, deeply creased and scarred. They look like badly sunburned Reuben's derrieres. Nor are they made for travel. More often than not, one will spontaneously split through the 25-yard stroll from garden to kitchen, if not eaten within a day or so after being picked. They develop brownish bruises and begin leaking a watery orange liquid. But that rarely happens. Around our place, Brandywines goes fast. They may be ugly and fragile, yet there is no better tasting tomato than a garden ripe Brandywine. With sweetness and tartness playing off each other perfectly, and juices that burst into your mouth in a surge that forces you to abandon all pretext of the good table manners, and to slurp a real tomato's taste as distilled essence of sun, warm soil, and fine summer days. What tone is established in paragraph 1? A. Bleak, B. Resentful, C. Witty, or D. Modest? Number 2. How does the author develop the idea that the beauty of commercially grown tomatoes is only skin deep? Paragraph 4. A. By contrasting the appearance of tomatoes with consumer satisfaction. B. By explaining how easily tomatoes grown in gardens are bruised and cracked. C. By comparing how tomatoes look to other commercially grown vegetables. D. By describing the damage done to commercial vegetables during shipment to market. Read this sentence from paragraph 4. No one will ever be able to duplicate the flavor of garden-grown fruits and vegetables at the supermarket, or even the farmer's market. But there's a reason you don't hear consumers bemoaning the taste of supermarket cabbages, onions, or potatoes. How does this sentence help the author develop the idea that the commercial farming methods are responsible for consumer dissatisfaction? A. The sentence shows that other vegetables have grown more popular in recent years. B. The sentence suggests that the quality of their vegetables is much closer to garden fresh. C. The sentence cautions against comparing supermarket vegetables to those grown in gardens. D. The sentence offers alternative suggestions for purchasing vegetables that taste homegrown. How does the author support the claim that factory farming has had a larger impact on tomatoes than other vegetables? A. By relating information about the quantity of tomatoes grown in Florida. B. By including a detailed description of how tomatoes are harvested and ripened. C. By citing statistics that show how satisfaction with tomatoes has declined. Or D. By contrasting differences in how tomatoes are farmed to how other vegetables are grown. Number 5. How does the author's use of words such as industrial, artificially, and factory help convey his point of view in this passage? A. These words are used to illustrate the large impact farming practices have on consumers. B. These words imply a loss of the essential qualities associated with traditional farming. C. These words highlight the improvements farmers have made to improve crop production. Or D. These words describe how farming practices have enhanced fruits and vegetables. Number 6. Which of these statements is the best summary? A. New commercial farming methods allow consumers to enjoy beautiful, fresh tomatoes even in winter. B. Today, factory farms produce tomatoes bred to be firmer and fresher than tomatoes grown in the past. C. Modern farming techniques have made commercially grown tomatoes inferior to homegrown varieties. Or D. Tomatoes grown in home gardens are generally more prone to bruises than those grown commercially. Number 7. What rhetorical strategy does the author use to support his claims about tomatoes? A. The author makes an observation about tomatoes based on scientific evidence and observation. B. The author compares garden and commercially grown tomatoes and reports his findings objectively. C. The author suggests that modern farming methods will begin to impact other vegetables as they have tomatoes. Or D. The author uses personal stories to suggest a theory as to why people are dissatisfied with tomatoes. There are 3 underlined parts in the passage. They may be errors to be corrected, or they may need to be changed for better wording. If a change is needed, select the correct replacement. If no change is needed, select no change. The poet Samuel Coleridge, in the Rime of Ancient Mariner, poetically describes an ironic situation faced by a sailor. Water, water everywhere, nor any drop to drink. The quote also serves as a reminder of the more practical truth that humans need water to live. In fact, most people would not be able to survive to make it much longer than 2 or 3 days without having water. This makes sense when you consider that the human body is made up of about 60% water. Water plays several key roles in physical health, protecting joints, preventing injury and fatigue during exercise, and it helps keep kidneys healthy. 8. Which change, if any, is needed to the underlined text? Sailor, quotation mark, water, comma. A. Sailor, colon, quotation mark, water, comma. B. Sailor, semicolon, quotation mark, water, comma. C. Sailor, quotation mark, water. Or D. No change. Which change, if any, shows the best way to revise the underlined text? In fact, most people will not be able to survive to make it much longer than 2 or 3 days without having water. A. In fact, most would not survive to make it 2 or 3 days without having water. B. In fact, most would not be able to survive any longer than 2 or 3 days without any water. C. In fact, most people would not survive longer than 2 or 3 days without it. Or D. No change. 10. Which change, if any, shows the best way to revise the underlined text? And it helps keep kidneys healthy. A. And keeping kidneys healthy. B. And it keeps your kidneys healthy. C. And also your kidneys will be healthier. Or D. No change.